welcome back to Kaplan's Career Goals. Today I'm joined by a Kaplan VIP guest, Kathy Walton. Kathy is the first female CEO of Kaplan Financial UK. So it's a pleasure to have you today. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for inviting me.
Amazing. So how are you?
Good, good. A little damp today, but good.
I know, yeah, it's never sunny in Manchester, is it? So obviously I've just given a brief description of who you are, but just for the viewers at home, can you explain a bit about what a CEO is?
I mean, I've been CEO for just over 2 years now, so it's fair to say I'm still working it out. But I think the biggest difference from doing the CEO role from the roles I've done before is that this is much more externally facing. So I spend a lot of time with clients, other external stakeholders, regulators, government, and it's a lot more long-term in my thinking. So I do have to think about what I'm doing today and next week, but I also think about what the business is doing in 3 to 5 years' time.
Yeah, so how did you get to CEO? Like, we'll start off with Kaplan. Where did you start off at Kaplan?
Well, I suppose you could say I started as a student, because I was a student with the company before I joined the company. And as a student, I just loved the buzz whenever I went into college. And I saw the lecturers, the tutors, and they just seemed to be having so much fun. And I thought, how do you do that? So rather cheekily, on the very last course that I did, when they sent around the feedback form, instead of saying what I liked and didn't like about the course, I just wrote, have you got any jobs on the feedback form. So the next day, they came around and said, look, come and talk to us when you finished your exams. So I started as a tutor, and I thought I would do that whilst I worked out what I wanted to be. And then I found out that I just really loved the organisation. So they let me do things like look after clients, and then eventually they let me run a very small college that we had in Glasgow, so I relocated.
Okay.
And then a couple of years later, they let me run the Manchester College, which I'd actually studied at. So that was a real career high for me at that point.
Yeah, back to your roots.
And then after that, they said, well, if you can run one big college, then you can run several colleges, and why not run all the colleges? And it just naturally kept evolving until I was MD, then COO, and then 2 years ago, CEO.
Oh, wow. So it wasn't really like long-term goals. It was at first you just wanted to be a tutor, and
I never really knew more than a year or 18 months ahead what I wanted to do. But the great thing about the company I work for is that I think they know what I should be doing before I even know it myself.
Oh, amazing. So are you originally from Manchester?
Oh yeah, you can tell by the accent, can't you? Bolton girl, born and bred.
We found out that your first football game was a Bolton Wanderers football game. Yeah?
I am a Bolton Wanderers fan. I used to be a season ticket holder. I haven't had the time for the last few years, but yeah. And when I went to Glasgow to run that office, I used to drive down for the matches. So I would spend Saturday morning driving all the way down to Bolton Wanderers, very often in the rain for a 0-0 game, to then drive back to Glasgow.
So yeah, I was going to say, so my family are from Bolton,
oh,
so
excellent.
I can relate, my family are Bolton fans. So, as a Bolton fan, how do you handle disappointment?
Oh, thank you. That's amazing. Well, right now, and I know it depends when this goes out, but right now Bolton are doing okay. I hope that doesn't jinx it. Oh, I think it's just, if you're a football fan, that is just reflective of life. There are highs, there are lows. It's unpredictable, but it's about being part of a team. That's what's important. So
would you say that you kind of relate that like football spirit into your job?
Definitely, and actually you've just reminded me about something that I've forgotten. When I first started as a tutor, you go on an internal tutor training course, and just to see whether or not you can stand up and actually speak in front of other people, they get you to pick a non-technical subject, because you haven't learned how to teach accountancy or anything then. Just pick something that you're passionate about and talk about it for 5 minutes. And I talked about Bolton Wanderers with a Bolton Wanderers scarf around my neck.
Oh, that's amazing. So literally full circle.
They do record those as well, so I really hope that's not somewhere.
You're going to have to dig it out and see how passionate you was back then. When was that? Was it?
Oh, that was 1997. I mean, people watching this won't have even been born, so it does make me feel really old.
Yeah, but they were quite good then, weren't
they? They were.
For this segment, we play a game of Never Have I Ever. We have a paddle here, and I'll ask the guest a question that's on these cards. If they've done it, green for I have and red for I haven't. So we will be revealing some truths.
Okay.
So, do you understand the rules of the game?
I think so, yeah, I think so.
Right, okay, so the first one, fairly easy. Never have I ever felt underqualified for a job.
I haven't.
Never?
No, because I think it's not about your qualifications. I think it's about your skills. And you might not have done something already, but if you've got, underlying skills that are transferable, then that's the whole point.
Yeah.
You just learn to apply them in a different environment.
Well, that's a really good answer, because I would usually say, because I would have said I have, because I live by fake it till you make it. Like, I'll go for a job and I'll get it. Like this one, I got it and I was like, oh, I'm going to have to know what I'm doing now. Like, I've got it now, I'm too far in. But yeah, that is a good point. And the second one is, never have I ever lied on my CV.
So at this point, I have to point out that because I've been with Kaplan since 1997, it's a long time since I submitted a CV for anything. I was going for a Saturday job to work in all things. It was just a baker's shop, and I really, really wanted it because I needed part-time income. And they said, "Have you ever worked in a bakery shop before?" And for some reason, the words "yes, I have" just came out of my mouth. I think I felt nervous. And so they said, oh, which one? Which isn't an unreasonable question. And then I realised that I didn't want to embellish this anymore. I said, well, not worked in a bakery shop, but I've been in a bakery shop, which is, but they still gave me the job. I don't know how I got away with that one.
Never have I ever had first day nerves.
Oh, I have. Absolutely. Because as much as I do think you've got transferable skills and, you're there to learn and develop, why wouldn't you have nerves? I think nerves are a positive thing. It just means that something's really important to you.
So the next segment is called Digital Stories.
Okay.
So for this segment, before the guest comes on the show, we ask them to think of a number that is significant to them. So did you think of a number?
I did. It was really easy.
And what number was that?
The number is 9. And I should just say I am a little bit superstitious. I salute magpies. I wouldn't walk under a ladder. I'm very aware when it's Friday the 13th. And so I've become really quite superstitious about the number 9 as well, I would say.
In a positive
in a positive way, in that if I see the number 9, then everything's going to be okay. And I think I was trying to think about why the number 9, and then I started to realise all the reasons. And I know you can create this, but so I'm one of 9.
Yeah, you're the youngest.
I'm the youngest, so I'm the 9th of 9. So that was going to be significant, I suppose. I lived in the same house from when I was born till when I was in my early 20s, and that was number 9.
Okay.
My birth month is September, which is the 9th month. And then I started to realise things like, well, my husband's birthday is the 9th, our wedding anniversary is the 9th. The first house that I bought with my own money, the house number was 135, which adds up to 9. I mean, this is tenuous now, isn't it?
But still, I wouldn't say it's a coincidence.
I just think that in a lot of big moments in my life, it was kind of there. And you made me think about it. I'm like, well, what about where I live now? And it hasn't even got a house number, but it's got 9 letters in its name, which I never even thought about till you asked me to think about this. And then I found out that even though it's not got a number, next door is number 37. So there's a chance it might be a hidden 39, which has got a 9 in it. So I've probably just given you 9 reasons why 9's important as well, knowing me.
I know, that is really good. It's like you couldn't have thought of any other number if all of that adds up to the number 9.
It does.
That's amazing. So we'll talk a bit about you being the youngest of 9, because that is unique. Like, there's not many people that have that many siblings. Did you ever feel the pressure of kind of following in their footsteps when you was growing up?
Absolutely not. No, I mean, for me and my brothers and sisters, everyone's been really successful at what they do, but it's not an academic family or anything like that. And my mum and dad were just really chilled. Whatever you like, whatever you're good at, follow that. So I was the first one to even do A-levels. So there was definitely no academic pressure in the family whatsoever. And then in terms of career, just do what makes you happy.
So with you saying that you were the first to go into A-levels, what Was it just, you just liked?
I liked school. I hadn't finished learning. So I just knew I was always going to do A levels, but as far as I was concerned, that was then it. That would be learning finished, and then you start work. Because, you know, there always been a really strong work ethic. When I was talking, you know, about part-time jobs and things like that, you know, it was just an assumption, you know, from the age of, I was going to say 13, I'm not sure whether you're allowed to be a babysitter at 13, but certainly, you know, this is back in the day. But I always had, you know, income, and therefore, you know, having your own money, earning your own money, being in control of your own finances was always really strong. So it was just, everybody assumed, including myself, that I would just go straight from sixth form and go into a job.
Would you say, do you analyse things in like a kind of strategic way? Do you think it's helped you now?
I think people tend to say you're either good at numbers or you're good at words, but I think numbers tell a story.
Yeah.
And you know, one of the apprenticeships that we do is all about data analytics, and that's the whole point. It's what is the number, what are these numbers telling us, rather than the numbers themselves. And economics is, again, full of numbers, you know, whether it's all about how the economy's doing, how countries are doing, and things like that. So, yeah, that really appealed to me. But I could have gone into careers which are much more about numbers, you know, like, you know, being an actuary and pensions, that's like up here, brain size of a planet and so on. I've got good numbers, but it's about what numbers mean that's more important to me.
So it's really interesting that you just said that, because I was speaking to a data analyst apprentice previously, and they were saying about telling stories through numbers and through data and making it easier to understand for people that don't really understand numbers. So it is good that your thought process is like that as well.
Yeah, I mean, I probably don't consciously think of it as data analytics, but now I recognise it for what it is.
Yeah, I think it's really good, especially to those at home listening in, to know that, going back to what you said, like, you're not an academic family. I think a lot of people have this judgment that if you're the CEO, you come from money and you come from education. Do you know what I mean? Like, you come from like this, you was born to be a CEO, and your parents like brought you up like that, but it's not the case, is it?
It's not, but also I think it's important that, you know, like, I think there's sometimes a lot of glamour attached to something like CEO. For me, it was just a natural evolution of the job that I was doing. And, you know, I think that I think about my 8 brothers and sisters, and they've all been successful in completely different ways. You know, whether that's serving in the service, you know, in the army. 2 of my brothers served in the army. There's others that have progressed in the jobs that they work. So it's really not a big deal. Nobody cares about that title in my family.
So the next bit, we've got industry myths. So for this segment, I'll read out a statement that's on the card, and the guest will decide whether they think it's a myth or a fact, and just give me your opinion about it. So you might completely agree. So the first one, a bit more about your degree. Economics is just about money.
That's such a myth. That is such a myth. No, because I'm not about money, and I love economics, so I don't really see how that would work. I think there's a lot of numbers used in economics, and sometimes what you're measuring is money, you know, like the output of companies, or, you know, things connected to money, like an interest rate or something.
Yeah.
Economics is about business, it's about commerce, it's about countries, it's about individual businesses, it's about how do we decide what the price of a course should be. It's everywhere. It's kind of like saying food is about calories.
Yeah.
You can measure food in calories, but surely food is about so much more than the calories that are in it. So it's part of it, but it shouldn't define it. So I think that's a myth.
Yeah, like, you can't survive without economics. The world wouldn't exist.
Fantastic analogy.
Yeah, amazing. So next one, economics is a blackboard exercise.
I think what that's suggesting is that it's very theoretical. But it's not. I mean, that's why I loved economics. You know, I'm not an academic, but I loved economics. So even if you just think about what's happening in the world, you know, now or at any point, when you're seeing, you know, cost of living is going up, and what the government's trying to do to try and help with that is to change interest rates, because that changes how much people can buy and spend or save, and that means that they'll spend less out there if the interest rates go up, and if they spend less, then that starts to calm inflation down. So it's not theoretical. We're living and breathing this every single day. The news is full of it.
No, see, like I'm obviously not knowledgeable in economics, but I'd say, because I travel quite a lot, and when you go to a country and the pound is worth so much more than that currency, and that's about that country's economics, is it?
Of course it is. I mean, generally what an exchange rate means is you've got two countries and one's getting stronger and one's getting weaker for a whole variety of reasons, and that's kind of reflected in the exchange rate. So you feel that's not theoretical.
Yeah, exactly. There's someone who has no idea about it as well. And yeah, exactly. So next one, you need a degree from university to become a CEO. Absolutely not.
Absolutely not. I mean, I really enjoyed university in the end. So I was quite reluctant to go, but I just got a lot of good advice, so I went. And I could afford it, which these days, that just wouldn't have been the case. But, I mean, I know, even though I did go to university, I went to an accountancy firm and then came through to work at Kaplan, and you don't need a degree to go into an accountancy firm. And interestingly, some of the people that are on our leadership team didn't go to university. Some of the people that I deal with at some of our biggest clients who've been hugely successful did an apprenticeship. They didn't go to university. So I think both routes can get you to success, but I wouldn't put one above the other.
Because at first I would have thought, yeah, you do need a degree. But like you've just said, you studied ACA at Kaplan. You don't need a degree to study at Kaplan. Yeah. So then you don't need a degree.
No.
Like you could have, I'm not saying you could have skipped it, but theoretically you could have. And then about apprenticeships at the moment, so I didn't know much about apprenticeships before I got into this job. And my job is essentially to, I'm going to say the word, advertise the apprenticeships to other people. So I need to know everything that I can about them. And it's, do you know when you're trying to convince other people and you're convincing yourself?
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, I might do one. And thinking back now, because I went to uni, like if I knew what you could get out of an apprenticeship when I was 18 years old, making that decision, I know I wouldn't have went to uni now, because like you've just said, like you can become a CEO at any point, but I feel, this isn't a fact, but I feel like you can get to where you want to go to quicker through an apprenticeship.
You certainly can, and if you speak to some of our clients, and they'll take people on from school and they'll take people on from university, and they like to have a mixture.
Yeah.
But what they will then do is compare someone who's been an apprentice for 3 years compared to a brand new graduate.
Yeah.
And they're miles apart in terms of what they can do at work. They'll probably both end up getting to the same point eventually, but if anything, if you know that you want to be something and there's an apprenticeship route to it, you can just go straight for it. And I think for me, it was quite a binary choice when I was at sixth form. You could either get a good job that was reasonably well paid, and the only sector that offered that were banks. Because even back then, the accountancy firms didn't take people on with A-levels. I mean, they have moved on a long way. So it was either go and work it for a bank or go to university. Those were the two choices that I was given. I think if there'd been more apprenticeships around then I would have certainly considered that as a choice. But the apprenticeships that were around back then were more traditional apprenticeships, probably blue-collar apprenticeships. You know, I want to be a plumber, I want to be an electrician. It wasn't, I want to be an accountant.
Yeah, it does depend on what you want to do. I think that's a big thing, because obviously at a young age, you might not necessarily know what you want to do.
Well, even as I said it to you, I didn't know I was going to be an accountant. I just knew that I wanted a career that was, I'd keep learning in finance or business somewhere. So I think university can be good if people are not really clear about what they want to be. I think university gives you an opportunity to, you know, find things out for the next few years, but it's quite an expensive way to find it out. And for me, when I'd been working for 12 months, but I applied to university on the side, because obviously I already had my A-level grades. And I was thinking about this before I came here today, like who was it who planted that seed? Because it wasn't at home, and it was actually it was a lady that I worked with, and I can't even remember her name. I'm ashamed to say I can't remember her name, but we shared a train to get in and out of work, and she just kept asking me, why did you not go to university? You've got good A-level grades. I didn't do it. If I had my time again, I would do it. Why don't you just apply? You know, you can get places. It doesn't mean that you necessarily go in. Yeah. And so I kind of just had some support from someone who had no reason to have this vested interest in my career. And that's what happens with careers and goals and things, like interventions from people. It kind of fascinates me. So I suppose I was hedging my bets. I had my job, but I had a place at university as well. And then it just came down to, can I afford it? And back then, you know, I got used to earning a wage, and now I had to think about, now I'm not going to. And I was paying my mum and dad board and lodgings, £25 a week, I can still remember how much it was, in order to stay there. And so I had to work out, how can I still pay them that money? Because it's not their choice, it shouldn't be their fault. Yeah. And how can I still kind of afford to go? And back then you didn't have to pay to go to university. Because it was means tested, I actually got a grant to go to university.
Oh, that's good.
Of about £2,000 a year.
Okay.
So it helped to contribute. And then I had part-time work, and actually I just kind of managed to square it. But fast forward to the decision now, there were no family savings, there was no anything, and you know, I probably would have just come out with so much debt.
Yeah, I'm in that situation now.
Sorry, I didn't mean to remind you about that.
It's so smart. No, yeah, exactly. And with you saying like how outside factors, when you said about the person on the train and they would say like, oh, I would have done it. I think a lot of my decisions that I've made are from people saying to me, oh, I wish I did this differently, or do you know, I regret this, and then you're like, oh, well, I don't want to regret that, so I'm going to do it. But yeah, I think everyone's path is different, and as long as you get to where you want to get to. We've still got some industry myths. CEOs are extroverted leaders.
I can only speak for myself. I think I am quite extrovert. I mean, youngest of 9. You know, if you're not a bit jazz hands, no one's ever going to pay any attention to you. So, and I think just working at Kaplan, I know that a lot of the, if you do a straw poll amongst the tutors, many of them, you know, they are frustrated actors and actresses. You know, they've very often got, you know, they're in bands, or they're, you know, they're a bit of Amdram or something like that. So, yeah, I think that, I don't think accountants are necessarily extrovert, but I think the ones that get drawn towards teaching probably are. So, yes, I think I am. You know, if I did the Myers-Briggs or whatever, it would say that. But I don't think you have to be extrovert to be a good CEO. I think it probably depends what sort of business you're running, and I'm sure there are lots of other qualities that introverts bring.
Final one. CEOs need to be ruthless.
I think that's a myth. I don't think CEOs have to be ruthless. You have to be prepared to make difficult decisions. It's not a popularity contest by any stretch of the imagination. And some people will be disappointed by the decisions that you make. But I think that's why it's important. I said it before about, you know, thinking forward. And I think that's why it's important to have a vision. And you explain, that's the direction that we're going in, and it'll take us a few years, and to get there we will apply these values, and we'll have these behaviours, and we'll have goals. And I think if you set that scene, then people will understand why we're not doing certain things, because it's not consistent with our values, or it's not going to get us to where we need to get to. I think that if you don't lay out a vision and you just say no, then that's when people rightfully get frustrated.
When you're saying about having to make bad decisions, and like, I'm going to use the phrase having to be the bad guy, how does that make you feel?
It hasn't been a problem so far. I'm going to touch wood now. It hasn't been a problem so far. I make a point of jumping into team meetings, whether that's physically or virtually, and invite people to ask me questions. But it's never a problem. If somebody wants to ask me a question, which is, why did we do this? Or did you consider that? Just ask me. Sometimes people kind of give ideas to me, and it could happen that I go, I never thought about that. And it could have influenced the decision, and maybe I can learn from that. But most of the time, it's, you know, the answer is, well, we did think about that, and the reason why we went, you know, left rather than right is because of this. I think people just want to have their say, and want to understand what the logic is behind the decisions. But you know, there will be difficult times, you know, back to you saying about being, you know, ruthless. You know, people come and ask me, can I have an extra member of staff, or can I do this? And sometimes the answer is no.
So, I think we found out quite a lot about you as CEO, your like economics, everything really. But before we let our guests go, we ask them the final question, and that's, what does career goals mean to you?
So, having kind of said that I kind of moved from step to step, and that actually I was really fortunate to work for an organisation that almost knew I was ready before I was ready myself, I don't think I've ever had any big, long, laid out path. My advice to generally people about career goals is, I think people think, what's your career goal? You have to say something that's really a really big leap, and it's a job, and it's a place. And I think those are career goals. So I want to be the managing director of a business, or I want to run a particular company, or whatever. But it's the little career goals that people don't think of them as a career goal. So every single year you should be thinking about, in a year's time, if I'm exactly the same as I am today, doing exactly the same job, and I've not learned anything, then that's not going to help my career. But maybe if I've, you know, looked at my weaknesses and developed them. So you said before about not really wanting to get up and do public speaking, and then here you are, right? Sometimes you have to push yourself into your uncomfortable areas. And just taking a step into an uncomfortable area is one step towards the career goal. It might not be aimed at a particular job or, you know, a date, a deadline, but you're more skillful than you were before. So you've got the little ones and you've got the big ones. And for me, I get frustrated when, you know, I could be speaking to friends or whatever, and they'll go, oh, it's appraisal season. And I'll go, do you not see that this is your opportunity to sit down, look back at the distance travelled and look ahead? And it's all about you. The light is being shone on you, and your job's been stopped, paused for an hour or an hour and a half, and this is about your personal development. You know, go for it, be bold. And if you're going for a job somewhere, you know, at the end of the interview when they say, have you got any questions? And you're kind of, you know, twiddling your thumbs, you don't know. Ask them about their appraisal system. Ask them about their talent management system, because you want to join an organisation that helps you to develop. And it's a really good question to ask. I was asked it once, and I've never forgotten that person.
Oh, wow. That's a really, really good point. And like with appraisals, like I'm so surprised that people don't like appraisals.
Yeah.
Like I love getting that positive feedback when I'm speaking to like my manager. But thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate you taking time out of what I can imagine is a very, very busy schedule. But have you enjoyed it?
I've loved it, and remember, frustrated actress over here.
Amazing. So thank you so much, and hopefully for you at home you're feeling inspired by Kathy's career journey. So if you want to know more about how to study accountancy or how to become a CEO, remember to head over to our website at www.kaplan.co.uk, and don't forget to like, comment and subscribe to our YouTube channel, and we'll see you soon.